They've got about 1,000 centrifuges now working, enriching the material that can make, at some point, a nuclear device. The United States reserves the right to preempt, and we may have to preempt that nuclear weapons program. We cannot allow them to have a nuclear device. With those two caveats, talk to your enemies.
If it came down to a preemptive U.S. strike against Iran's nuclear facility, if necessary, would you authorize as president the use of tactical nuclear weapons?
I would authorize the use of tactical nuclear weapons if there was no other way to preempt those particular centrifuges. When the Osiris reactor was hit in '86, when the six F-18s came over the horizon and knocked that out, they didn't need anything but conventional weapons. Probably it's going to take a little more than that. I don't think it's going to take tactical nukes.
What do you think, Mayor? Do you think if you were president of the United States and it came down to Iran having a nuclear bomb, would you say is unacceptable, you would authorize the use of tactical nuclear weapons?
Part of the premise of talking to Iran has to be that they have to know very clearly that it is unacceptable to the United States that they have nuclear power. I think it could be done with conventional weapons, but you can't rule out anything, and you shouldn't take any option off the table. And during the debate the other night, the Democrats seem to be back in the 1990s. They don't seem to have gotten beyond the Cold War. Iran is a threat, a nuclear threat, not just because they can deliver a nuclear warhead with missiles. They're a nuclear threat because they are the biggest state sponsor of terrorism, and they can hand nuclear materials to terrorists. And we saw just last week in New York an attempt by Islamic terrorists to attack JFK Airport. 3 weeks ago, an attempt to attack Fort Dix. These are real problems. This war is not a bumper sticker. This war is a real war.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me bring Governor Gilmore in. What do you say about the potential use of tactical nuclear weapons if that's what it takes to go deep underground and destroy those Iraqi facilities?
One of the central problems of the Middle East is the desire for Iran to dominate that portion of the world because of what they are doing. And that is why I believe that they are seeking this kind of nuclear capacity. That is one of the reasons why we are in fact in Iraq. And that's why our soldiers, when they fight and die there, are in fact serving the interests of the United States. Nobody ought to have any doubt about that. With respect to Iran, the policy I would follow would be dual. Number one, we need to work with our European allies in order to put in appropriate sanctions. We need to communicate directly with the Iranians that we are going to offer them an opportunity to work with us. But we are also going to say that having a nuclear weapon is unacceptable. They need to understand it, and all options are on the table by the United States in that instance.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Romney, I want to get you on the record. Do you agree with the mayor, the governor, others here, that the use of tactical nuclear weapons potentially would be possible if that were the only way to stop Iran from developing a nuclear bomb?
You don't take options off the table, but what you do is stand back and say, what's going on here? Do you see what's happening in Sudan and Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran? All over the world, we're seeing the same thing happening, and that is people are testing the United States of America. And we have to make sure they understand that we're not arrogant. We have resolve, and we have the strength to protect our interests and to protect people who love liberty. For that to happen, we're going to have to not just attack each one of these problems one by one, but say, how do we help move the world of Islam so that the moderate Muslims can reject the extreme? And for that to happen, we're going to have a strong military and an effort to combine with our allies in such a way that we combine for an effort to help move Islam towards modernity. That's what we're going to have to do instead of looking at each theater one by one and saying, we'll bomb here, we'll attack here, we'll go to Sudan. I watch the Democrats. They don't think there's a war on terror. There is a war going on, and we need a broad response to make sure that these people have a different vision.
Thank you, Governor. All of you are going to have an opportunity to weigh in on all of these questions as well. If you're hearing some sounds out there, it's lightning here in Manchester, New Hampshire. Those are the crackling sounds that you're hearing. Let's go back to Scott.
Thanks, Wolf. Congressman Tancredo, let's talk immigration.
Okay.
You oppose the immigration reform compromise, calling it, quote, the worst piece of legislation to come down the pike in a long time. Just this morning in Manchester, you vowed to oust any senator who supports the bill, including possibly New Hampshire Senior Senator Judd Gregg, who's undecided, and says to your comments that you are part of the know-nothing wing of the political spectrum. In the meantime, the president says his plan is the last best chance for serious immigration reform. He's criticized conservatives for being obstructionists. With that tension at stake, if this becomes law, what are the consequences for the country?
They are incredible, and they are disastrous. And that is exactly why I have said what I've said. And that is why I have consistently tried to impress upon the American public the seriousness of this issue. We're not just talking about the number of jobs that we may be losing or the number of kids that are in our schools and impacting our school system and the number of people that are abusing our hospital system and taking advantage of the welfare system in this country. We're not just talking about that. We're talking about something that goes to the very heart of this nation, whether or not we will actually survive as a nation. And here's what I mean by that. What we're doing here in this immigration battle is testing our willingness to actually hold together as a nation or split apart into a lot of balkanized pieces. We are testing our willingness to actually hold on to something called the English language, something that is the glue that is supposed to hold us together as a nation. We are becoming a bilingual nation, and that is not good. And that is the fearful part of this. The ramifications are much, much more significant than any of that we've been discussing so far. And so yes, I have said dramatic things, and yes, I'm willing to do whatever necessary to try to stop this piece of legislation, and that includes go after any Republican that votes for it, because the Republicans can stop this.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. Mayor Giuliani, what do you think the consequences for the nation are